I hosted a party the night my family disowned me. Not a meltdown, not revenge. Just wine, music, and one quiet announcement. Thank you for being here tonight. This is our last supper. Then came the video. Clips of my mom calling me a burden. My brother faking text messages to drain my savings. My father telling his new girlfriend I didn't count. The room froze. Then I handed them a single printed page. My net worth. They laughed until they saw the numbers. I wasn't broke. I was hiding. And tonight, they would finally understand why. It was 2:13 a.m. when my phone buzzed with a single line of text. Come to the hospital. It's Mom. Urgent. I didn't hesitate. I threw on the nearest hoodie, grabbed my keys, and sped across the city with my chest caving in and my mind spinning. My mother had heart problems, or so she said. I pictured her collapsed in a hallway, tubes and wires, a flatline beep. But when I pushed open the ER doors, breathless and terrified, I didn't find her on a stretcher. I found her in the salon next door, flipping through a magazine with freshly dyed hair and a mocha latte in hand. She looked up casually. Oh, good, you're here. Can you drive me home? I didn't want to Uber this late. She smiled like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just burned a hole in my soul with worry. I said nothing. I drove her home. I paid for the hair. That was the role I'd rehearsed since I was 5. Be the good daughter, the loyal one, the helper, the fixer. In our house, love was earned with obedience, and respect meant self-erasure. I used to think it was beautiful, our tight-knit family, our unbreakable bond. I was taught that we don't leave each other behind, that family sticks together. So when Columbia University sent me a full-ride scholarship letter, I didn't even open the envelope. My mother tore it in half before I could. No one in this house is abandoning the rest of us to chase some ridiculous dream, she said, her voice flat like concrete. You're not better than us. I believed her. I stayed. I enrolled at a local community college I didn't want, took a part-time job I hated, and spent my nights cleaning up after everyone. I told myself it was love. One year I failed an important finance exam. I came home shattered, thinking my life was over. My mother sat me down, cradled my head into her chest, and whispered, "It's okay, baby. You're doing your best. I'm so proud of you." For a moment, I melted. That hug felt like everything I ever wanted. Warmth, safety, love. A week later, I found out she had emptied my savings account to pay off her credit card debt. My tuition check bounced. When I confronted her, she said, "I had to. You weren't going to use it anyway. One failed exam and you're already breaking down." That was the first time I understood. Affection was currency in my family. You received it only when it bought them something. That hug wasn't love, it was a distraction. I didn't fight, I didn't scream. I folded myself smaller and smiled. That's how you survive in a house where silence is loyalty. And then there was my father, a man of few words, and most of them were knives wrapped in velvet. "You're too sensitive," he'd mutter when I flinched at his sarcasm. "You overthink everything." He'd say this while I cooked dinner, paid the bills, fixed his printer. Gaslighting was our second language. Doubt wasn't a feeling, it was a way of life. Every time I questioned something, they made me question myself instead. My brother, he was the golden child, the boy who could do no wrong. One day I received a message from Mom asking for $3,000 to help pay rent. I wired it immediately, no questions asked. 2 weeks later, I found out my mother never sent that message. When I brought it up at dinner, my brother smirked. "You think I'd do that to you?" he said. "God, you really are paranoid." Everyone laughed. My father clinked his wine glass. "Madeline, you've always had such a wild imagination." I laughed too, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. It wasn't until a Thanksgiving dinner years later that I discovered the pattern wasn't unique to me. My aunt, my mother's youngest sister, pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Heard you gave up that scholarship years ago," she said. "Your mom did the same thing to me in '92. Said the family needed me here." She handed me a photo, me at 8, beaming, holding up a drawing of our family under a giant heart. I stared at that little girl. I remembered how proud I was, how I used to think we were special, unbreakable. That's when it hit me. This was generational. A script passed down like a cursed heirloom. Sacrifice yourself, get nothing, call it love. I thought I was the favorite, the daughter who always said yes, but I wasn't special. I was useful. That night, I lay in bed and whispered the truth out loud for the first time. I'm not their daughter. I'm their unpaid debt collector. And that was the beginning. The dining room was too quiet for an inheritance ceremony. You'd think there'd be tension, but everyone looked bored, except me. My grandfather had passed away 2 months earlier, and today we were all gathered to hear the reading of his will. I wore black, not for grief, but for formality. My mother wore beige. My brother showed up late and unshaven, but no one said a word. When the lawyer opened the folder and began to speak, I watched their faces. My grandfather left the beach house to my brother, the vintage car to my uncle, a rare coin collection to my cousin. I waited, my chest rising with hope. I didn't want to admit existed. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this time I mattered. "And to Madeline Carter," the lawyer said, not looking up. "He leaves a personalized thermal mug with her name engraved." Silence. My mother turned toward me with a thin smile. "You don't have a family of your own, honey. What would you even do with a house?" I nodded, like a good girl, like a woman too numb to scream. I didn't stay for dessert. Back home, I collapsed in the kitchen, forehead pressed against the cold tile. My breath came in short gasps, not from sadness, but from something worse, humiliation. I had given everything, all my 20s, my emotional labor, my savings. I drove them to appointments, cleaned their messes, defended them at their lowest. And all I was worth was a mug. I crawled to the drawer near the fridge, my emergency drawer, the one labeled Future in blocky Sharpie letters. Inside was a worn leather notebook, the kind my mother once told me to use for tracking expenses. I'd used it for dreams, a checklist of things I once thought possible. Top of the list, save enough to buy a home of my own. Below it, start my own business by 30. Last, get out. I flipped through the pages. They were blank. And at the very back, tucked between 2 empty sheets, was my savings passbook from when I was 22. I'd opened that account with birthday money and graduation checks. My last glimpse of financial independence before everything got managed. Balance 0. I stared at the number until my eyes blurred. If love was a currency, I'd been bankrupt for years. The next morning, I opened my laptop and started deleting things. Not files, access. My mother's email was still logged in. I signed her out. I reset passwords, changed account numbers, blocked her fingerprint from my phone. It was the first time in 15 years I touched my own boundaries. I dug through archived folders she had deleted and found something unexpected. A college acceptance letter from a school abroad. dated 8 years ago. A program I applied to and never heard back from, or so I thought. It was addressed to me. A full ride, tuition, housing, everything. I sat there in stunned silence. She had erased it from my life without a word. Have you ever buried your own dream because someone you loved told you not to want it? Have you ever apologized for imagining a future that didn't include them? I didn't cry this time. I closed the laptop, stood up, and started packing. But first, I opened another app, a crypto wallet I'd created in 2016 when Bitcoin was a joke and Ethereum was experimental. I'd forgotten it existed. A friend had dared me to try investing with my birthday money. I put in $500, laughed, and never looked at it again. Balance, $3,042,000. My heart didn't leap, it didn't race, it settled. I wasn't poor, I was caged. I wasn't forgotten, I was silenced. And now I was done. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. I spent the next weeks pretending. I smiled at family dinners. I drove my mom to her appointments. I sent texts that said, "Love you," and "Sure, anything you need." But behind that smile, a new self was forming. One with passwords no one knew, plans no one could sabotage, and power they'd never believe I had. I used to think that freedom meant running away. Now I knew it meant standing still and watching them underestimate me. Again, for the last time. I didn't vanish. I built a shadow version of myself. The first move was legal. I registered an LLC in Delaware. Nothing flashy, just a simple shell company with a generic name and no familial trace. I opened a business account under that name, moved my crypto earnings into it, and hired a financial advisor who operated strictly through secure channels. Every asset I acquired from that point on went through the LLC. I was no longer Madeline Carter, the daughter. I was a CEO with no past. Next, I hired a lawyer, not the kind that wore a tie and nodded politely. This one specialized in family asset protection and privacy law. She didn't ask many questions. She just looked at my setup, nodded, and said, "Smart, let's make it airtight." We created layers, paper trails, backup clauses, and estate plans that left nothing exposed. The goal wasn't revenge, not yet. It was insulation, but information. That was going to be the weapon. I downloaded a legally vetted recording app on my phone. It auto-saved conversations and backed them to an encrypted cloud. For 6 months, I let it run. Phone calls with my mother, dinners with my father, family brunches where someone always said something they shouldn't. No one noticed, no one suspected. What they gave me, freely and proudly, was poison in their own words. Late one night, I sat cross-legged on my floor, scrolling through the audio files. I played one at random. My father's voice crackled through the speaker, calm and detached. "She's just a disappointment. I mean, look at her. 35, no husband, no kids. What does she even do all day?" He laughed. So did my mother. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I pressed rewind and played it again, then saved it to a separate folder called Final Act. I was halfway through reviewing another file when I got a notice from a bank I'd never heard of, congratulating me on my new credit card approval. I hadn't applied for anything. I logged in. Someone had opened a card using my name and social security number. The billing address, my parents' house, the balance, 17,943. Sata, I knew immediately who it was. The handwriting hadn't changed, only the pen. My fingers trembled over the keyboard for a second, then steadied. I printed the statement, highlighted every fraudulent charge, and scanned it into the folder. I didn't call my mother. I didn't ask her why. I already knew the answer. Because she could. And for the first time, I didn't feel betrayed. I felt clear. I wasn't unraveling. I was assembling. Still, I knew I couldn't do this alone. That's when I remembered Claire. We went to university together. She had been a year ahead, loud, brilliant, and always 10 steps ahead of everyone. We hadn't spoken in a decade, but I found her profile, now an attorney specializing in personal rights and financial abuse, and sent a message. She replied in less than 5 minutes. "I've been waiting for you to wake up." We met for coffee 2 days later. I showed her everything, the documents, the recordings, the account trails. She nodded as I spoke, didn't blink once. Then she leaned in and said, "You've got enough to start a small war. Let's instead win a quiet one." I smiled for real. Claire connected me with a therapist who specialized in family trauma and emotional detachment. Our sessions weren't soft. She didn't offer tissues or say, "I'm sorry." She asked questions like scalpels. What purpose did being the good daughter serve? What happens when you stop proving your worth? Do you want peace or payback? So I ask you, if you had to choose between forgiveness that sets them free or justice that sets you free, what would you pick? I picked silence, for now. And then the strangest thing happened. One afternoon, an envelope arrived at my P.O. box. No return address. Inside, a printed transcript. It was a group chat between my mother and several family friends. In it, they called me selfish, dramatic, ungrateful. One message read, "She's always been a liability. I told you not to include her in anything important." But the message was forwarded by someone else. Handwritten on the back was a note. "She doesn't deserve this, I'm sorry." I recognized the handwriting. Mrs. Kent, my mother's best friend. The woman who once told me I should be grateful for how much my family did for me. So maybe not everyone was blind. Maybe some were just scared. And maybe fear was starting to shift. They still thought I was that quiet girl in the corner, nodding, apologizing, shrinking. They didn't know I had been listening. They didn't know I had receipts. They didn't know I was training, because this wasn't going to be a confrontation. It was going to be a performance, and I had rehearsed every line. The invitation was simple, an elegant ivory card embossed in gold, mailed by courier. It read, "Family Appreciation Dinner, Thursday at 7 p.m., dress code, celebration chic." I didn't explain further. I didn't need to. The words free dinner and family were bait enough. Every one of them RSVP'd within 48 hours. I booked a private dining hall at a 5-star hotel overlooking the city skyline, the kind of place they'd never expect me to afford. The room shimmered in candlelight and silk, and their compliments flowed the moment they walked in. "You look so elegant," my mother said, lips glossy and eyes scanning the champagne bottles like inventory. "This place must have cost a fortune," my father murmured, half suspicious, half impressed. My brother gave me a wink. "So, are we finally celebrating you getting married or just pretending?" I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was the last time I'd ever have to pretend. Dinner was exquisite. Filet mignon, truffle risotto, wine with labels they couldn't pronounce. I made a toast halfway through. I stood up, raised my glass, and said, "Thank you for being here. Tonight means more than you know. I wanted this to be a celebration, not of me, but of everything we've shared." They smiled, nodded, clinked glasses, then the lights dimmed. A projector flickered to life behind me. "Before dessert," I said softly, "a short video, a thank you montage." The opening shot, my mother, on speakerphone, snapping. I don't care what she's doing. If she has money, she better send it. Next clip, my father at a barbecue, drink in hand, laughing. Madeline, hell, she'll do whatever we say. She always does. The room stiffened. Forks paused mid-air. Then came the recording of my brother. I only message her when I need something. She's basically a bank with emotional issues. No one breathed. I let the silence settle. Then I turned to them. You always assumed I didn't know, that I wasn't paying attention, but I was. I just stopped reacting. My mother's face crumpled. She reached for my hand. Sweetheart, I didn't mean any of it. Please, that's not who I am. The video cut again. This time it showed a group chat. Her text read, "She doesn't need to be in the will. She's not even really part of this family anymore." My mother froze, mid-reach. Her hand dropped. No one spoke, not even my father, who looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. I stepped forward, pulled a black folder from my purse, and placed a copy at each plate. This, I said, is my asset list, just in case you were curious what I've been doing while you were laughing behind my back. They opened them, a penthouse condo downtown, 3 rental properties in prime locations, a startup valued at $12.5 million, an Ethereum wallet worth just over $3 million, legal ownership proof, verified, notarized. My father swayed slightly. My brother muttered something and shoved his chair back so violently it screeched. My mother fainted right there at the table. Staff rushed in. I waved them off. She's just overwhelmed, I said. Give her a minute. Then I sat down, and I watched them, really watched. There was no joy in it, no triumph, only space, finally, mercifully, between their expectations and my reality. I dreamed of this moment once, of shouting, crying, demanding answers. But now that I had it, all I felt was done. I looked across the table and saw not monsters, but small people, petty people, people who only knew how to take because no one had ever shown them how to build. And I was tired of teaching them. I folded my napkin, stood up, and smoothed my dress. I'm not here to punish you, I said. I just wanted you to see me, really see me for once. No one met my eyes. I'm leaving the country in a month. New ventures, new name? After tonight, I'd prefer we no longer speak. My brother cursed. My father opened his mouth to protest. My mother whispered something like a sob, but I was already walking away. Outside, the air smelled like rain. I looked up, half expecting thunder, half expecting applause. I got neither, just silence, which, for the first time, felt like freedom. I didn't win. I just finally stopped losing, and I still had one more move to make. 3 days after the dinner, I received a cease and desist letter. Neatly typed, formally stamped, and painfully predictable. My family claimed I had defamed them, invaded their privacy, and caused irreparable emotional harm. They were considering legal action. I laughed when I saw it. Claire didn't. She grinned. "We can bury this in 3 days," she said, flipping through the letter. "They're bluffing, but if they want to go to court, we can make it hurt." I gave her everything. The recordings, the financials, the stolen credit history, the will exclusion, the group chats. She built a file so solid it could have doubled as a concrete wall. Within a week, her counter-response shut them down. They never filed the lawsuit. They knew they wouldn't survive discovery. But the internet had already taken over. Somehow, probably someone at the hotel staff, or maybe one of my cousins with a guilty conscience, someone had uploaded a clip of my dinner speech. Not the full video, Just my words. I'm not here to punish you. I just wanted you to see me, really see me for once. It went viral. At first, I panicked, but then the comments came pouring in. This gave me chills. I wish I was this brave. She didn't ruin her family. She reclaimed herself. Then came the messages, emails from strangers, DMs from women I'd never met. A professor from a women's college invited me to speak. Then a financial nonprofit, then a major podcast. I said yes to one, then two. By the end of the month, I was flying across the country every weekend, standing in front of packed rooms of people, hungry for something I never thought I'd have to give. Permission to leave, to draw a line, to be done. And then unexpectedly, an email from Julia, my cousin, the one who used to mock me at family reunions, the one who'd once said, maybe if you weren't so dramatic, they'd treat you better. She wrote, I watched the video. I believed everything they said about you. I'm sorry. I was wrong. You didn't deserve any of it. I hope you're okay. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I didn't want their pity. Just their silence. Let them grieve the version of me they buried. Let them sit with the space I left behind. Justice, I learned, isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's as quiet as an unanswered apology. And sometimes it's louder than anything you could ever say. I started thinking less about what they took from me and more about what I could give to someone else. I donated 10% of my total assets, over $1 million, to a legal fund supporting women trapped in financial abuse. The fund created emergency shelters, legal aid programs, exit strategies, real-world tools for women like me 5 years ago. Then I wrote a book, Inheritance Isn't Blood, Choosing Yourself When Your Family Won't. It sold out in pre-orders. A TED Talk invitation followed. I stood on that red dot in a black suit, looked out at 1,000 strangers and said, we're taught that family is sacred, that we owe them our silence, our money, our futures. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, not in anger, in clarity. People stood, people cried. I did too. 1 week later, I got a letter in crayon, pink paper, glitter edges, no return address. Inside, a child's handwriting. Dear Miss Madeline, my mom says you're very brave. I watched your talk with her. I used to think I was the problem, but now I think maybe I'm just early. Thank you. Love, Sophie, age 10. I read it 3 times, and then I sat very still, not because I was overwhelmed, but because I finally understood something. This was never about proving anything to them. It was about ending something inside me. I didn't need to be the hero of my family story. I just needed to stop being the casualty of it. I didn't destroy anything. I liberated myself. I thought I wanted to win. But what I really needed was to be free. I moved to a quiet town by the ocean, not for drama or escape, but for air, space, peace, the kind you don't notice until you've lived without it for too long. My house is small, 2 bedrooms, 1 for me, 1 for art supplies. I still don't know how to use properly. The backyard has raised beds where tomatoes are finally starting to grow. I have a dog now, Scout. He's a mutt with 1 ear that never stays up and eyes that track every move I make, like I might vanish again. I spend my mornings barefoot in the garden, coffee in hand, Scout running laps around the fence. No phone, no family group chat, no performative obligation to be anyone's anything. Afternoons are slower. I paint sometimes, badly, but it's not about beauty. It's about color, about not explaining myself. about leaving something unfinished and not calling it failure. And slowly, I started reconnecting, not with the family I left, but the ones I forgot I had. An aunt who used to braid my hair and read me mystery novels. A cousin who sent flowers anonymously after the video went viral. A neighbor who once told me, "If you ever need a place to exhale, my porch is yours." They showed up gently, not all at once, not with apologies or demands, just presence. A text on my birthday, a casserole when Scout got sick, a handwritten card that said, "You inspire me, not because you fought, but because you stayed kind." So I'll ask you this. Can you let yourself trust again? Can you believe that love, real love, still exists, even after you've been told that you never deserved it? I did. Not quickly, not easily, but I did. And it changed everything. Somewhere along the way, people began asking for more. Not just my story, but the structure, the strategy, the steps. So I built something, an online academy, a digital space called Reclaim. It offers classes on financial autonomy, emotional detachment, legal literacy. We don't teach how to survive toxic families. We teach how to outgrow them. Women signed up from 5 continents in the first 3 months. One wrote, "I left after 19 years. Your module on boundaries as legacy helped me stop apologizing." Another said, "My mother doesn't speak to me anymore, but for the first time, I sleep." That's when I knew this wasn't just about me. It was about building a bridge for everyone still stuck on the island I escaped. I published a book next. The richest thing I gained was myself. It wasn't about money. It was about worth. Real, intrinsic, terrifyingly powerful self-worth. It debuted at number 3. Stayed on the list for 14 weeks. Oprah called. I almost didn't answer. When I did, she said, "You didn't just write a book. You gave people permission." I cried after we hung up. Not for validation, but because I finally believed her. Sometimes I still wake up reaching for my phone, half expecting a passive-aggressive text from my mother, or a new number with my brother's area code. It doesn't come, not anymore. And that absence, it's not emptiness, it's a clean slate. Last week, I stood in front of a mirror while getting ready for a speaking event. My hair was pinned up, my dress a little too formal for my taste, but the lipstick was right. I looked at my reflection for a long time. For years, I'd looked into mirrors, waiting to see approval, permission, proof that I was enough. But this time, I didn't wait. I smiled. Not the practiced one I used to wear for their comfort. A real one. And I whispered, "You don't need anyone to call you good. You're whole. And that's enough." I left the house 10 minutes later, Scout barking at the door like a tiny bodyguard. He didn't stop until I said, "It's okay, buddy. I'll be back soon." And I will, because this is home now, not a place. A person, me.